We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with longtime host of this here radio show and Liberty Nation's senior political analyst, Mr. Tim Donner. Now, earlier in the show, we were just talking about Trump's victory, how this impacts Nikki Haley's possibilities for a VP pick, and various other things. But I'd really like to dive into the electoral math here, Tim. Now, but at one point that I did want to come back to was Nevada is before the South Carolina election. Now, Nikki Haley, she said in her, I guess you'd call it a victory speech, even though she came second. You'd call it a victory speech because she wasn't demolished by the numbers.
Mark, it shows you how shrewd a politician she is, because she picked the optimal time of the evening when she had a deficit of only about 7 points.
Yeah.
Go out on stage and say, hey, look how close I've come on to South Carolina. That's very clever. Instead of waiting till later in the night.
Yeah.
And of course, she congratulated Trump, but she got on stage long before him and at a time of the evening where she was guaranteed to get more coverage. This is a shrewd politician. And I think she's proven that by outlasting all these other men.
Yeah, I think so. It was really clever that she knew that it was going the one direction. She thought, well, if I get there now, this video will be my one speech that everybody looks on, and it's at a point where it's not a terrible victory. It shows that I've made a good gain. Now, the reality was that gain sort of slackened to almost twice what it was, I guess, when
although
she made the speech.
I do observe that her outfit looked like she had come from a Golden Jubilee ball or something. it was very formal, but I'm sure there was a reason for that.
Sure. But she said in her, let's call it her quasi-victory speech, she said, yeah, we're on to South Carolina. Now, she completely missed the fact that Nevada's next.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a reason for that. And I'm sure quite a lot of our listeners know this. But there's almost like two popes where Nevada's concerned. It's like the schism in the Catholic Church.
Yes.
So just for some background.
Or in the New Hampshire Democratic Party.
Or in the New Hampshire Democratic Party, absolutely.
With their unsanctioned primary.
Yeah, they'll get sanctioned somewhere along the lines, I tell you.
Yes.
But yeah, so what happened in 2020? Well, 2021, I guess. 2020 is both Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders demanded recounts because the system by which their votes were counted, they were not happy with it, which, just goes to show they're clearly election deniers, right? Demanding all those recounts. But that's
already
besides
been
the point.
Established, yes.
Already established. So what happened was that the Democrat state legislature changed the law on how these things would be held. And then the Republicans sued back in, I think it was May 2023, saying that Democrats are trying to control how we hold our presidential nomination system. And so you ended up with the state is now running the primaries, but the GOP state party is running a caucus. Yeah.
Which is the only place where delegates are awarded.
Exactly. That's the key.
And so here's what Nikki Haley's going to say. Okay, she didn't register for the caucus, but she did for the primary, which is just a beauty contest.
Yeah, Mike Pence in there as well.
Yeah, well, she'll get crushed in the primary, but she won't lose any delegates from it. She'll spend some time trying to get some votes in the caucus, but she'll probably point out that Trump lost Nevada twice in 16 and 20 and try to say that she will win Nevada and therefore she should be supported by Nevada Republicans who are, and they are more moderate, I have to say. As a
well,
whole,
they're so close to California.
Yes, it's
a 3-hour flight, right?
Well, the wind carries that progressivism a little bit eastward. Yeah.
Yeah, you're saying that like it's something the CDC should be looking into, carrying that progressivism on the wind
Well,
into
I
Nevada.
mean, I'm not the one that called progressivism a mind virus. I just repeat that others
Gad
have said
Sad,
that.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Gad Sad. If you're listening, Dr. Sad, do get in touch. So we have Nevada. Now, Trump is going to win that 100% because the only other person in that caucus is Ron DeSantis, who's withdrawn. So nobody's going to cast the vote. He gets all those delegates. Now, this is giving Trump quite a healthy lead going forward. I think it he's certainly going to win South Carolina as well, um, by quite the margin. The polls have him, the aggregate of polls, according to 538.com, have him 50 points ahead of Nikki Haley in the Palmetto State, her hometown. So I think he's going to get the delegates there. He'll get the delegates in Nevada. He's got a pretty awesome lead then going into Super Tuesday, hasn't he? And Michigan, oh, I'm sorry. Michigan has him 50 points ahead. He has double in South Carolina.
Look, he's got massive leads in all of these states.
Yeah.
The only real justification on paper for Nikki Haley to continue through Super Tuesday is A, what happens with the Trump trials?
Yeah.
Things could get worse for him and scare people off. And number two, on Super Tuesday, 15 states include a few that allow independents or even Democrats to vote in a Republican primary. So she hopes maybe she can pull off something like New Hampshire by attracting the non-Trump vote. And I think she's convinced. She again cleverly says, look, almost half the party says they don't want Trump. That's her spin on the fact that more than half the party does want him. But how that translates to a general election, nobody knows.
It's interesting that you bring up about the open primary systems where people, non-affiliated voters can vote in the things. But also, Trump's been talking about this as well. And the New York Times, ABC News have been saying that he's speaking false. He's talking false statements, which they seem to just apply straight off to Donald Trump.
Jeez, that's a new one.
But specifically
the New York
here,
Times, let me get this straight. You're telling me that New York Times accused Donald Trump of lying? Alert the rest of the media.
Yeah.
Alert the rest of the media.
Specifically on this one, he's talking. They were talking about when Donald Trump said that Nikki Haley is relying on, for example, Democrat infiltrators to get her vote share up in the New Hampshire primaries. Now, they're basically essentially saying that this is talking false. Nobody's doing this. Anyway, there's a group working. It's a progressive group run by a chap called, I believe it's Richard Schwartz, and he spoke to Politico. His group's called Primary Pivot. Robert Schwartz, sorry, and this is actually what his group does. They're spending $500,000, $1 million on actually getting people to change their party affiliation before the October deadline, the October that is gone. And according to him, now bear in mind he is on the left because his whole mission is to stop Donald Trump. He says it's about 3,500 Democrats that became undeclared before the October deadline, and he believes that that's to. I believe that he believes that that's to. Was in order to vote against Donald Trump. And
well, you know what this... Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, also, there's tens of thousands of the undeclared voters that they were convincing that they've spent $500,000 on to specifically vote against Donald Trump in the primaries. Now, I think that's why Nikki Haley did as well as she did in the New Hampshire primary. Whether that can be repeated down the line, though, I don't think that's a viable option going forward. Tim Donner, we're going to be right back with you just after this short break. Please don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.